And that was the signal for me to have remembered to record the meeting. Thank you again, Mamadou, for just taking us through that and for us having that better understanding. We really appreciate the time that you've taken to be here with us, and we know that we can count on your leadership as well moving forward. All the best for your meetings in Kampala, and we'll try and catch up with you later on. Thank you again, Mamadou Diallo, for that very extensive explanation and the interpretation that came through from Mamadou Goita, really just grounding us onto the events, how it happened, but also giving us a setting of how champion countries, as they are called in the space of migration governance, is sort of not a permanent state. And I think it's an example that we have here of Morocco, and really echoing what both Mamadou Diallo and Mamadou Goita did say about us raising this, not just within the region, but also taking it up to the international scene, challenging basically what global leaders take up as best practice countries, and really challenging them with events and moments like this to demonstrate accountability. And I think that's what remains important. Alors, mon français, c'est pas très bon comme Mamadou. Je suis anglophone, en fait. Je m'excuse.
Non, c'est bon, c'est bon.
Si je
Don't
veux pas
need,
traduire.
I understand. Just I don't have a good. I don't know how to explain myself very well, but I understand what you said.
Non, mais ça va. Je pense que votre anglais c'est beaucoup mieux que mon français. But at this point, I think it's a good juncture for us to just to add to the context that has been shared. So I'll ask Fambaye to come in, and Comrade Joel to add in also very briefly as well what you see, and particularly also talking a little bit about from the events and what has unfolded. What are the reactions? C'est à vous, Madame Fambaye. You have to unmute yourself.
Merci beaucoup, Paddy, et merci à mon ami et frère Mamadou Goita qui vient de nous lâcher un peu. J'avais vraiment besoin de lui pour cette traduction, mais quand même, on va s'y faire. Et merci beaucoup, Mamadou Diallo, de nous avoir fait en fait le film qui nous a permis de mieux comprendre ce qui s'est réellement passé. Nous avions tous à l'idée que, en fait, ces politiques d'externalisation des frontières étaient en fait quelque chose qui allait causer des drames sur ces pays qui ont accepté de s'inscrire dans cette coopération sécuritaire, comme le Maroc et l'Espagne. Et nous avons, à travers ce film, compris aussi que ce drame, avec les pertes, a su vraiment remuer le monde, mais qu'il y ait eu cette non-assistance à personne en danger et en péril, en fait, vient de rendre plus inhumain la réaction de ces forces de l'ordre. C'est en fait une infraction pénale qui est là. Et je pense que nous, organisations de la société civile, nous devons fonder une action par rapport à cette non-assistance personne en danger. Il nous l'a dit, au lieu de sauver ces vies-là, ils ont privilégié le fait de poursuivre ce qu'ils ont eu à traverser et à s'évader à travers ces forêts-là. Donc cet acte aussi témoigne un peu le caractère inhumain dans le traitement de ces migrants. Et les actions à entreprendre, je pense que des déclarations ont été faites, des déclarations signées. On nous dit que 108 organisations de la société civile ont eu à signer cette fameuse déclaration au niveau du Maroc. Mais je pense qu'au-delà de ces déclarations, et ce qui fonde cette rencontre aujourd'hui, c'est que nous devons mener des actions plus visibles et plus lisibles qui auront plus d'impact sur, en fait, ce traitement que connaît et que continuera de connaître les migrants. Mais si, en fait, 33 des migrants demandeurs d'asile réfugiés, selon le terme, ont été jugés et condamnés à 11 mois ferme avec amende. Moi, je trouve que c'est trop sévère. Qu'est-ce que nous devons faire par rapport à ça? Il y aura un autre procès, on nous a dit le 27 aussi. Qu'est-ce que nous devons faire pour vraiment impacter sur les suites de cet événement? Je pense qu'on a assez dénoncé, on s'est fait assez entendre à travers des communiqués, mais des actions sur le terrain, je pense qu'il nous en faudra pour mieux impacter sur le traitement de ces migrants-là. Et je pense que nous allons continuer la réflexion de ce côté-là, mais vraiment remercier encore une fois de plus Mamadou pour les actions qu'ils ont eu à mener et les autres organisations de la société civile à travers toute l'Afrique. Nous, au niveau syndical, on a eu à faire des déclarations aussi comme tout le monde. Au niveau de la société civile Migrafrique, on a fait des déclarations, on a fait aussi des rencontres online pour préparer notre plan d'action qui sera en fait des actions simultanées à travers tous les pays en un moment T. On est là-dessus, la réflexion est enclenchée, mais il nous faudra avoir plus de collaborateurs, plus de partenaires pour que cette activité-là se fera vraiment entendre que au niveau de l'Afrique, toute organisation, quelle que soit sa situation, pourra faire quelque chose, une réunion, une rencontre online, une activité extramuros comme un sitting ou bien quelque chose comme ça, ou une journée de réflexion sur la situation des migrants, mais que ce soit des activités qui se feront au même moment à travers toute l'Afrique. Voilà ce que nous prévoyons de faire en un premier temps après notre déclaration. Et c'est ce que je voulais aussi dire après, en fait, cette intervention de dialogue. Merci beaucoup, Paddy.
Merci beaucoup, ma sœur Fambaye, pour cette information. My very weak translation, I think, just coming in, and I think Fambaye just wanted to add there the importance of CSO action. I think beyond what has taken place, so beyond some of the declarations that have come out from the various organizations, including Migrafrique, which has issued a declaration, but also beyond some of the statements that have come out condemning the violence, what can really be done to move on? What is that visible action that we want to see? What can we do next following this level of advocacy? And I think a platform like this is sort of, you know, is one of the ways in which we can move some of the things that have been laid out in declarations, but also can add to some of the action plans, I think some of the activities that some of these organizations have laid out, but also for ourselves here, how do we get much more informed? How do we become much more strategic in our advocacy? How do we remain consistent? I think there's also, it's also very important in terms of the kind of impact that we would like to see beyond the advocacy across the continent, but also voices coming from different places. Fambaye also mentioned that there is, as part of the Migrafrique plan, I think some ideas around having online meetings, but also having the advocacy that also involves other organizations across the continent. So I think it's a good setting that we're here, and I think it would be important for us to also hear from others listening in. Diop, I see that your hand is up. Before I ask you to speak, I'll just ask Comrade Joe to come in and share with us from your space as well, what you sort of see. And then after that, I think Diop and then others who would like to come in, let's just spend a few minutes, I think, to go into what we see as updates, and then we can agree sort of what the next steps will be for our plan under this platform. Thank you. Comrade Joe.
Thanks. Well, what I can say is that from where Comrade Fambaye stopped, we just need to speak to practical actions. What is it we can do in the short term, medium, and the long? My take would be that, okay, we have reacted, but media-wise, I didn't think the reaction gained so much traction as would have been expected. And so sometimes the state of Morocco might think, as it's usually the case, the global human community will forget quickly and move on to something else. So my suggestion would be, can we do something online, an online action that we can publicize and syndicate widely, something we can plan for within 2 weeks and put it out. I'm specific. Can we do a Twitter blitz kind of campaign targeting the government of Morocco? Do we want to target the king? Hashtag migrants are humans. Hashtag dignity for migrants, whatever name we agree. And then we target maybe the king of Morocco, and we ask everybody on a particular date to flood his Twitter handle with this message. He gets it, and then, of course, the media picks on that campaign and also helps to share it widely. That's one short-term thing we can do. The medium and term, can we continue this, put this issue as one of the many issues on the domain? Of course, we should be asking for justice and asking for alternatives. Can we put this in the medium term to now, from now to December, where we have the International Day for Refugees and Migrants celebration, December 18, where we can do something. Within this medium term, the GFMD is coming to Africa. Can we also have this issue as one of the issues that we will be interested in engaging as this process comes to our continent, specifically on pathways, and then using this to show the crisis of what it means when it's not well dealt with, using the Moroccan crisis to show. And then also, of course, the question to alternative to detention. Can we use this case to address that going forward? And then, of course, in the long term, we mean how much can we really engage the civil society movement space in Morocco. Quite a number of them have been active. The state's officials in Morocco, and then, of course, Africa. What should be our standard, what is acceptable or what is not acceptable in terms of how to treat or handle migrants, including irregular migrants. What should be the standard? I think we can also, and then when I say the long term, we have a 2-year plan going from, let me say from May to the Africa regional review of the GSM. Can we do something within this period to also show our input into how we deal with things like this so that they don't repeat themselves? So once they happen, our focus should be more on preventive prescriptions that will help. And then, of course, also reactionary moves are also not to be ruled out. And then where it is necessary, dissent is also an approach that should also not be taken off the table. We disagree, we should disagree. Then as for us as ITUC Africa, we are having a meeting with our affiliates in Morocco. My challenge now is how to get the Moroccan unions to quickly ensure that I get a letter from the Moroccan authority to allow me visa on arrival. There is no embassy of Morocco in Togo here. So how to even travel is the challenge at the moment, but we are working on that. So we should engage the Moroccans and our people in Morocco on the ground, including the civil society community. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Comrade Joe, for just bringing to light sort of some very specifics in terms of moving forward, the short term, the medium term, and also the long term. I'm conscious that I think that in about a week, we should be able to get minutes of what we're discussing here, because I think that sets for us and for those who are not here with us sort of some very key directions that those who are here with us would like to see coming forward. So thank you for sharing these. I saw Diop had a hand up and now it's down, but I think there's some important pointers going forward. I think what's also important for us is to share the various statements that have been out there. What is it, can we, 1 month following the events, what is it that is different that we want to say? And I think in that new statement, we need to be talking about some of the actions or some of the accountability that we would like to see going forward. So we're not just kind of repeating ourselves, but we're re-emphasizing what we would like to see. I don't know, could we hear a bit from the floor? For those who are joining, you're welcome. And we are at the point where we've I've had a listen, well, introduced ourselves, but also had a listen to what the events look like on the ground from Mamadou Diallo, who's there, and also from Fambaye, who added some context in terms of some of the actions that followed in declarations. And we're at that point where we're trying to figure out what's next. Nana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to show myself briefly and then stop, because this is my I woke up too early face, and I won't scare you all with it. But so a couple of things that came to mind. I'm really thankful for hearing everything that people have indicated, and I'm going with Comrade Joe right now in terms of some, practical actions. And Madame Fambaye, thank you so much for talking about, the more that we can do. So I had put in the chat, I don't know if I hit send though, I'm thinking about a week of action. That could be something that happens, people voluntarily, civil society orgs voluntarily jump in. And I'm thinking again about what we did here, Baji, with respect to Del Rio, which involves a country in terms of this US-Mexico border in Mexico that is also supposed to be a big champion of migrant rights, but doesn't seem to be able to be a champion when it comes to African and Haitian migrants. And so we had a week of action in which we connected with other civil society organizations who were interested and did actions in various cities across the country. And some migrants even joined us at the border. And some people did it at the consulate or the embassy of Mexico. Some people, did it in the streets or in front of US government buildings. But that was one thing, in-person actions with various civil society organizations coming together. The other thing we did that week is the Twitter storm or Twitter blitz that Comrade Joe was speaking of. So for people who cannot be in person, it gives them the opportunity to still have a way to join with a, digital flyer, a hashtag we all agree on, and we just, spread that far and wide with whatever social media capacities we have. The other thing we did was an open letter. And so we could resend out because everyone hasn't seen the declarations that have been done. That week could be a week when we're pushing that out as well, or doing something new that we then put like a letter to the editor in Le Monde, in the Spanish paper, in papers on the continent, etc., that's signed by everyone, lifting this issue back up. Hopefully that could get some media attention. And then lastly, a toolkit, a digital toolkit, which really is like a document that people can go to that gives them information, that gives them talking points, that gives them, information on the events that are happening that week, and in one organized place so people can join in. I've said a lot, I apologize, but I think a week of action would be brilliant in this moment.
Nana, thank you very much for bringing in those suggestions. And I think we would have asked you to even share much more in this context. And I know, but that this is not the first and last time that we will see you here. And very happy to have you here in terms of also just raising that advocacy, away from the continent as well. We need as many of us advocating from the different spaces. So thank you for sharing those ideas in relation to a week of action. I also just wanted to add that I think indeed on the continent, while we saw that foreign media were quick to pick on it, our mainstream media, and we're talking here also of some of the national newspapers. We're talking about, just the mainstream media that we also have in sharing and highlighting some of the issues that remained rather weak when we compare to some of the foreign correspondents or the foreign coverage of the events that had happened. So thank you for just reminding us of how we need to kind of bringing in mainstream media. That remains very important. Did anyone else just want to come in and lean in either in ideas that have been shared? Mamadou.
Yeah, well, I will try to understand myself. I don't know if I can be better, but yeah, just I want just add something from that my sister said now, and Sister Fai, what she said, for what is the action now we have to do. I think the first action now we have to do, we have to push all our organization like CDAO, like UA, to take position for this situation, because I think that is very important for us. If our government in the relation diplomatic, they cannot take position to defend the population from another country, I think that is not a good thing. That is the first. And I don't like the position what just now what this our government take from this situation, because I don't see any initiative. They don't have any action to push these two governments, Spain and Morocco, to make justice for this situation. And that is no good thing. Secondly, I think like my brother has give ideas, so how we can take action to toss for the king, c'est-à-dire prendre une action qui pourrait peut-être aller jusqu'à tousser le roi. Voilà, qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour aller vraiment, parce que c'est lui vraiment l'homme. Et ceux qui sont ici, tous les membres du gouvernement, all the government members, then just here, then just want to know how we speak to migration. Only they want to defend Morocco. Only that they need to do. Is only want the king prendre des initiatives qui sont des bonnes initiatives qui vont à l'esprit du panafricanisme que nous aspirons. Les autres, ils sont dans leur esprit de racisme, ils sont là, c'est ça qui les préoccupe et c'est ce qu'ils veulent faire. Donc vraiment, nous, si je veux juste résumer, il faudrait qu'on ait comment mener des plaidoyers que nos différents gouvernements et nos différentes organisations sous-régionales puissent prendre des positions quand il y a des actions de telle nature qui touchent les citoyens africains que nous sommes. On ne peut pas tuer maintenant des enfants africains pour un pays colonisateur qui a colonisé l'Afrique, qui l'a pris ce qu'il a pris et qui maintenant qui ne veut pas entendre parler d'un Africain. That is impossible, I think, for us right in this time now, au XXIe siècle. On ne doit pas entendre ça. Voilà, ce que je pense, c'est ce que nous devons faire. Et pour ça, je pense qu'il faudrait qu'on crée un cadre de concertation permanent pour cette situation, parce que nous, ici au Maroc, c'est vrai, on fait des actions, voilà, mais nos actions sont de plus en plus portées par des organisations qui sont à l'extérieur du Maroc, parce que voilà, vous connaissez comment est la nature du Maroc, toute la question de sécurité, voilà, que nous vivons ici. Donc voilà un peu que je voulais ajouter sur ce qui a été dit par mes deux sœurs et mon grand frère du Nigeria. C'est bon.
Merci, Mamadou.
I'm sorry, I have bad English, but
it's perfect. I think we are more than comfortable. I dare to speak for the others and say we're more than comfortable. We'll be wrapping up soon, so it would be good for us to just get some feedback. Diop, did you want to just come in and share some of your reflections? Like I said, we will put this down. Richard as well, thanks for that hand up, so that maybe we can share in the next couple of minutes. Diop and then Richard.
Yes, thank you. I just want to, you hear me? Can they hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, Diop.
Okay, thank you. Just I want to talk something about this situation. I would like to intervene a little on these points. What's happening in Melilla is a big tragedy, but let me point out this fact. We must condemn and we deplore what's happening, but my concern is what should do. What should we will do to prevent this from happening again? What should be done on the other side of Africa? And the African Union is 54 states. What are other states doing? As we speak of young people continue to take the road to death, and the states do nothing. The solution is in Africa. I'm very happy to talk about this situation. It's very dramatic, but I think we will every time we will talk from 6 months, next 6 months again, perhaps, we will talk the same problem of Melilla or Septa or the situation migrant of Morocco, but we will never talk about African, where they come from for these children. We know the situation of Africa. We have to sensibilize, we have to talk with our states, they have to do some things. Morocco has to do the best to save for these immigrants. It is a law, the human rights. Okay, we have to condemn it. We have to do pressure for these estates. But about African estates, we have also to organize something with it. We see the example for when there is something happening in Ukraine, all the 27 states of European Union have the emergency meeting to see how they can organize some asylum refugees, their movement. You see many countries like Poland, they do the best things to receive the refugees. And African Union, you never see until this problem of Melilla, no meeting in Addis Ababa, no meeting for East African to talk about this dramatic situation. So I call for all the colleagues here to do a petition to Addis Ababa African Union to do some things. This ambassador was received by the government Moroccan after this drama, after this tragedy. You see their communique, what they say. The problem is not why this migrant come from to what is happening is very dramatic, but we have to talk also why these migrants come from Africa, what these East African have to do. I think it's very important to talk about for this situation where when some things happening, dramatic things happening, we have to condemn, we have to talk about, but we are already I don't know, to see what's happened in Africa, what they will do to prevent this situation from Africa. I'm very sorry. I should like to speak in French because I don't speak fluently in English, and I hope you will understand the resume of my ideas. Thank you.
Merci, Diop, on a bien compris. Et j'espère que je peux parler pour tous, que c'était vraiment clair, votre idée, mais votre appel. Je m'excuse parce que je ne suis pas francophone, but also just to come back, I think, to talk about, your emphasis on Africa's accountability, Africa's response to what happened, and just the condemnation that goes beyond words, and that follow-up. And I think we have a lot of different frameworks in which we can put this forward to. So very much agreed, and your suggestions are noted. And I think I'm already seeing some, slogans coming out here where we want to say, shall never happen again, champion, not champion, but really looking at how we can make that call. But I think also you've added an important voice to what Mamadou had mentioned around accountability of the states, and really making sure that, while the actions from outside, civil society organizations have talked about this from outside, what about what we can see more coming out of actions in Morocco itself? Richard, the floor is yours.
And thank you, everyone. And so one of my points is just what Job has mentioned. So I'm not going to focus on that in the interest of time. But also just to say that we need to put, because I think all the points that have come up have been great ideas, and we need to find a way of taking it forward. We've had practical examples like what Nana shared. And so we together just need to put things together in terms of timelines, short-term, medium-term, long-term goals, because for this not to happen, some of the actions have to be short-term, but some have to be medium-term, long-term, which then captures some of the points that Diop just mentioned. And we need to then look for key stakeholders and key influencers that can help us take some of these notions and ideas forward. So yes, we can mention and talk about what the 54 states and the AU, ECOWAS, everyone has to do. But we realize that even we are talking about how some of the media in Africa have not even taken it up as a key issue to talk about. So we need to start to find those kind of alliances and to align with civil society actors, to align with local authorities and governments, and so that it helps us to move things forward. Because sometimes we are passionate about what we do, and we will come out with all the things that we think needs to be done. And then finally, we realize that resources are not enough as well. So we need to start to pull on other stakeholders whose resources can help us to achieve some of these things. And once we start to do that, it helps us. This is a good beginning point, all of us coming together. But how do we sustain the momentum? How do we sustain and increase the number of actors that have gathered here now to take things forward? And just like Diop said, today we are talking about this particular situation, but what happens next month or 6 months, a year or 2 or 5? Would we come back and gather again for the same reason, or we'll gather to say that we haven't heard of this thing for a long time, and we can really celebrate some good points and good practices to start to share with everybody going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for that. I think thank you for talking about the opportunities that we need to look in terms of being very strategic. So focusing on key stakeholders and influencers, and us aligning a bit to the actions, practical actions that we want to see on the ground, resources. And I think also something that Joe had mentioned, how do we leverage on new opportunities coming up? GFMD is coming, the program and the agenda is being drawn out. How do we ensure that this is one of those very essential topics, but also events and commemorations, such as the International Migrants Day? How do we ensure that we're just not allowing people to pat themselves on the back, but also to realize some of the very critical issues, and using this opportunity to seek that kind of accountability? The Africa review of the GCM as well, I think, is another opportunity. So just noting down, I think, also for ourselves. Dr. Kennedy, you're welcome. Kennedy, the floor is yours. You are welcome to share. And again, apologies, colleagues. I think we try to wrap up in the next 7 minutes or so. Kennedy, the floor is yours. I think you just need to unmute yourself, and then you can take the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes,
yeah,
you can go ahead.
Sorry for coming in late, but most of the points are brilliant. But the question is, these channels of crossing to Europe has been consistent, but it appears states have not prioritized the safety of migrants and refugees, and for that matter, to uphold their human rights. I think that one of the areas that we can look at had to do with sports. We have not actually collaborated very well with sports. If you look at the US killings and how the sports world was brought in and it was highlighted, I think that if we had done this and linked it to the tournament that was going on in Morocco, it would have served a good purpose. And I think that is one particular stakeholder that would need to look at how we can collaborate with them to carry our message forward. I just want to be brief on this. Thank you.
Excellent suggestion, Kennedy, in terms of really realizing what those influences that we have, and indeed what a wide range in terms of the, from the sports fraternity. And thank you very much, well noted. At this juncture, I also wanted to ask Emeka, just coming in from your side, because we have been talking about resources, we've been talking about strategizing, but we've also been talking also about a platform that we continue to host these. As you can see, my address there says JRFDT New Delhi, and being very conscious of this being very Africa-led, Africa-driven, and really being grounded on the soil, but with the rest of us sitting and supporting these actions, not to pass on responsibility, but to really just work in a more collaborative space. I wondered whether we could also talk about which platforms we can use. I'm quite aware that all of us are coming from different organizations. That's how we started. And as we end this, I think would be very interesting for us to know, I mean, with all of us collaborating and supporting the different things that we have to put together. Did you want to come in, Emeka, in terms of talking about a space or a home that we can have for these actions? As you can hear, we have a long-termism in there, and in ensuring that this doesn't happen ever again, I think we have to stay watch and we have to keep our eyes open. Emeka, any comments?
Thank you, Paddy, and thank you to everyone who has contributed. I wouldn't want to, again, reiterate or say things that have been said earlier. But that being said, I think I want to make a cry, or rather bemoan an opportunity we had, which was 2018 for the launching of the adoption of the Global Compact, and at the border of at the margin of that event, Morocco unleashed a very unfriendly attitude towards African migrants, to the point that they were all rounded up and dumped in the house cage so that they might present a clean environment. African CSOs, or CSOs generally, were reactionary to that, and thoughts of what could be done came up, but eventually, even at Marrakesh, we didn't do much to make that noise for people to actually know. And that speaks to the next thing I want to talk in terms of what spaces and how do we manage those spaces. It is unfortunate that we are still on the very, very slow pace of harnessing our space. We have consistently waited to be invited before we take our space. And we know that systems don't change themselves, and they are not so favorable to those who make them to change. And so we have to force ourselves into a space to take it. Joel and every other person have just said another opportunity had come up with the GFMD coming. How do we manage it? You ask a question about what structures do we use? All of us have different organizations or networks, and how do we manage the space? Pandemia is an example. We've set up a Pandemia for over 15 years now. It is still on the tutoring stage. I think that speaks to what I think might be a significant African particular attitude. I think we have problem with structures, and when structures come up, they seem to limit us, either because we are all busy or because we don't manage structures very well. So people become disinterested, and those who are willing are discouraged. So instead of looking for a systematic structure, I would rather suggest we take a fluid approach to structure. And by this, I mean, we organize ourselves around opportunities and team, just like we are doing now. We gather ourselves, use any platform of what is existing, cash in early enough, and maximize that space to make our points known and utilize all available opportunities, including the social media, to propagate what we are saying. And at the end of all, I think the takeaway word here is that we must re-strategize and we must rethink how we do things. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's some very important reflections in us moving forward. And I think you've just echoed the need. I think we have come to this place because there is a core, and that core coming from migrants who are not with us here in this space, some who have also lost their lives, but how do we really continue on into ensuring that there is accountability, there's justice for lives that have been lost, and that the emphasis for the future is to save lives. And all these things we've been talking about, alternatives to detention, but also just talking about regular pathways and regularization, the return to what the world wants to see as orderly, safe, and dignified migration starts by us being able to call out what we don't see as regular, safe, and orderly migration and the consequences of it. And thank you again, Emeka, for taking us back to Marrakesh and the actions that were not taken and how we sort of see those things unfolding and playing in a rather tragic way, as we have seen now with the events that happened in Melilla-Nador. So with this, I think that we have been here for 1.5 hours and others a bit more for those who joined earlier. Again, apologies that we had taken so long. I was just thinking that in terms of outlining what we want to do as the next steps, we have all responded to a call for one way or another, led by organizations or also by personal interest. And I hope that we can use that to continue with the momentum to show up, to remain committed to what we would like to do moving forward. I think it was a very good beginning for us starting off. And I think first step is to keep informed everyone who was also not here. So we will share first maybe the recording and then the minutes, or sort of a very rough outline of what have been discussed, the different ideas coming out of this. I think we always need a guiding document to keep us focused and as some kind of institutional memory. I think we need to find another opportunity for us to then unpack what we've put as short, medium, and long-term activities and not lose sight of what we would really like to have done. I think also very important in terms of lifting up the stakeholders, looking at the different opportunities. We know that calendars continue to move, but so let's just keep this also at the back of our minds in terms of actions that will need resourcing our personal time, but time that comes from institutions and space as well in the different structures. We talk about the GFMD, but there are also other processes that are taking place on the continent and in the space of our work in what we're doing. So how do we make sure that this is one of those issues that people do not forget about? Like somebody said, it's nearly, there's nearly no meeting that's happening around migration governance where Ukraine is being mentioned. And I want to echo what others have said in terms of, us really trying to find space for these issues to be mentioned. Otherwise, it remains invisible, and the lives of those that have been lost just remains but a mention in an article that happened a month ago. So moving forward, we'll share the minutes and maybe sort of a potential list of what looks at some actions that have been suggested. This will be a moving target and a list, and then a suggestion for the next meeting. Thank you again for everyone really showing up here today. I don't know if there were any other suggestions in terms of how you'd like us to see move forward. We're trying to take this, they say to eat an elephant, you have to chew a piece at a time. So if there were any other suggestions on how we chew the elephant in front of us, please feel free to share. Before we close, any comments or any closing remarks, anything that anybody felt that they wanted to highlight and say?
I'd like to thank everyone, particularly thanking you, Patty, so very much for bringing us all together across several time zones. Thank you so very much. I'm not sure how familiar people are with Google Docs, but maybe there's some type of document. I'm willing to go with whatever people are used to, that we could start. Maybe Patty, if you could start it, because you have everyone's emails, and add us to it, and we could start to put down some of the ideas of actions maybe 14 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90, right? Something like that. And then people could put in some ideas, organization.
Oh, Nana, that's my connection or?
Work we're talking about here, some kind of working document for us to use.
Absolutely. Thank you. I lost connection there, but I think I did get what you mentioned in terms of having a working document. And I think in terms of technology, yes, Google Doc always works best, particularly as we are many different people that are here. I also noticed, Michael, you are welcome. And I had seen you earlier on, didn't recognize that you were here. If you wanted to also just come in and share any reflections as we are closing in a moment. Michael? Otherwise, it's okay. It can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was just listening in to the discussions led by the several speakers and sharing ideas around the issue of the media and how we can also amplify what is happening. And I think that just listening through to these brilliant ideas, I am thinking that probably what we need to do is to also localize these ideas and also make sure that in the different areas where we are in, we must also start to talk about all these issues around the full migration cycle and what is happening to our young people and also what is happening to Africa, and also including how we can also try to address, I think that the issue of the decent work country programs are very important in trying to resolve some of the challenges of migration affecting our young people. And in all this, we should be involving the media so that they amplify our voices. And thank you so much for creating this platform.
Michael, thank you again. Thank you again, colleagues. I think we can call it a day. It's probably already late, I think, except for Nana, who's joining us from the Americas and just starting out today. Everyone else, I think, has been at it for quite some hours. Thanks again for your time. We promised to be a bit more prompt, I think, for our future meetings, but I think this was important in order for us to get an understanding. Mamadou Fambaye, thank you again for just shedding light into the issues there and how it looks like. Please feel free. Again, we've got the WhatsApp group. I think we've got several WhatsApp groups that are going on, but I think what's more consistent now is the email group that we have been sharing the meeting notifications. So in there, please put in your statements, share your websites, share the different actions that are happening, because maybe while we're planning, there are some actions that are going on and we can see very quickly how we can mobilize ourselves, those who can, to show up and also be able to support the different actions, and also articles and things that are happening around to keep us all updated and to remind us of the different issues.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, comrades. Bye. Thanks. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Merci. Au revoir, merci.